Hello everyone. In our today's session, we will try to build a publisher and subscriber process where the publisher would be validating the product using call orchestration, and on successful validation, it will route the message to subscriber. Subscriber will receive the order request and transform it to the destination type and route it to the end system. So we would see like how to pass the message between publisher and subscriber using direct binding, and promoting the properties to contexts within orchestration, exception handling along with logging messages to event logs. We would see how to use call and start orchestrations. Let us create a new BizTalk project. We name it as BizTalk.dj.snippets, and we will provide the deployment application name and sign in the assembly. Let's create a custom property schema. We would create service name, tracking ID and transaction ID as a message context property. Now let us add an existing schema of order request and outbound format. Order request has a header, product list and document list, where event ID is a distinguished promoted property. And outbound format, this is the format that target system expects the message to be delivered. Now let us build the publisher part, where we would be receiving the message from a receive location in order request format. Then we will be receiving it in the orchestration. We will create the orchestration as publisher process. Let us create a logical receive port. We will specify it as specify later, and it will be always receiving the message. Let us create a message type of order request. And bind it to the receive and the logical port. Let us add exception handling. We will do the exception handling using scope. I will set the transaction type as none. Let me configure the exception object as system.exception and give the object name as sysException. Let us log the exception in event log in case of any exception. and we will terminate the process in case of exception. Let us construct a call orchestration to validate the product that we receive in the order request. I would create a common folder where we will be having the reusable components like call and start orchestrations. I will add a new orchestration, say it as validate product. In order to make the orchestration as call or start, we need to parameterize the orchestration. We will add new parameters in orchestration parameters, where you can add a message type or a variable as a parameter and specify the direction as in or out. I would create a message type of order request as an input parameter. Let's have an exception handling for call orchestration. I'll specify the exception object as system.exception, and in call orchestration we would always throw an exception so that in the main orchestration we will catch it and terminate the process. So let us read the product name that we receive from the order request. I would create a variable of product name with type as string. We will use XPath to read the value. Let us create an DAL helper class where we will be using a ADO.NET approach to query the database and look for the product. I will make it as a serializable class. So here is the method. I am passing the connection string and the query. If the product is available, it will return true, and if not, it will return false. Let us build and get the utility, and we would add it to our project as a reference. As the method returns a boolean flag, we will create a variable to get the response from the method. I would create an helper object using which we will be invoking the method. let us add an out parameter in the orchestration parameters, where this boolean flag will be returned to the main orchestration. As it is an output parameter, we have to initialize it, otherwise we would get a build error. So I am assigning the output of the method to the output parameter. Let us come and build the publisher process. We will add a boolean variable to receive the output parameter returned by the called orchestration. Let us configure the call orchestration using call orchestration shape. Now we will have a decide shape based on the output returned by the called orchestration, and in case of success we will build the message and publish it to the message box, where the subscriber will subscribe to the message. So in order to publish the message to the message box, we should make a copy of the original message. I will name it as pub order request. So using assignment shape, I will copy the content of the original message to the pub order request, and even copy the context of the original message to the new message. So we will subscribe to the message from message box using context property. Let me set the context value. BizTalk DJ dot snippet dot service name will be the context value we will be looking for. I will set it as BizTalk DJ dot outbound process. So let us log the process steps in event log. So once we receive the message, we will put a log saying publisher process started, and calling the validation process for the event. We will read the event ID using distinguish promoted property. So in case of a validation failure, we would put a log publish process completed and product validation failed. And in case of success, we'll put a log saying product validation succeeded. So we will promote the transaction ID to the context using the custom context property. So we will use send shape to publish the message. We will create a logical port. We will use the communication direction as send and binding type as direct binding. We will use the publish order request to publish the message to the message box. So in order to promote the context, we need to add a correlation type. So from our context property, we would add service name and transaction ID and create a correlation type. We will create a correlation set which will be initialized in the send shape. So this is how we promote the property to the context within an orchestration. Now let us build a common process for archiving the message. We will use start orchestration to archive the message. I will name it as archive process. This is a simple process where it will receive the message, log it to the event log and archive the message to a directory. I will add orchestration parameters, a message type to receive any type of message, we will have a log saying archive process started archiving the message. Let us configure a logical send port where we will be routing the message. And we will bind the send and the logical port. So in order to archive the message, we will construct any message. Any message will be initialized with the order request message using XPath assignment. So in case of validation failure, we will archive the message using start orchestration, and in case of an exception also, we will archive the message. Normally we will try to archive the initial message that was received on the orchestration. So here we have received order request, we have assigned it to any message, and then we are archiving it. Let us build the solution. Okay, any message is not initialized. Okay, it has to be outside the scope. Now let us build the subscriber process. I'll create an orchestration process, name it as subscriber. So I will receive the message from the message box, so I have to create a logical port with direct binding, which will be receiving the message. So we will be receiving the order request type of message. So let me create a message of order request. We will map the receive and the logical receive port. So we will handle the exception using scope. I will add a catch block and have the exception object as system.exception. So similar to publisher, we will log the exception in the subscriber as well as archive it and then terminate the process. As we are archiving any type of message, as start orchestration accepts any type of message, we would convert the initial order request to any message and then use it in the start orchestration. Let us transform the order request to outbound format. We would create a message type of outbound format and then use it in the map. We will just do a one-to-one mapping. Let us configure the logical send port. We would route the transformed message to the target system. We will use a file adapter as the target system. We would implement the loggings as similar to the publisher. So we would log the transaction ID from the context to the event log. This is, we are trying to read the context property. Let us build and deploy the publisher and subscriber. Let us bind the orchestration to the host, and we would create a receive location. We would bind the send ports. We would use an XML pipeline to receive the message. We would be receiving the message in folder, and the outbound system would be the target folder, and you would have a archive folder. Let's start the application. I'll restart the host instance once. Let me create an instance of the order request schema, which I will be using it as a source message. Okay. On the subscriber, we have not set the filter condition, so we would set the filter condition and redeploy the application. We would be subscribing based on service name. As the publisher publishes the message with service name as BizTalk dj.outbound process, we have to subscribe based on the same value. So let us restart the host instance and the application once. So we will drop the order request message in the in folder. So I have done a database configuration for the products as title, escrow or signing. Other than these three values, it will be considered as an invalid product. So as you see, publisher and subscriber both got completed successfully. So here is the output message. I will provide an invalid product name and reprocess the file. So the publisher only has rejected the order as it was an invalid product, and the message would be archived in archive folder. So let us go through the message flow of the first process. So if you see, the message was received and validated using call orchestration, then published to the subscriber. We can switch between call orchestration and the parent orchestration, and even the message flow. So in case of second process, as we processed an invalid product, call orchestration would have rejected it, and we are archiving the message using start orchestration. We cannot switch into start because start is like a different thread. Let's say system exception occurred while calling the call orchestration, and we would catch the exception in the publisher and archive the message. So to generate the exception, I made the table as invalid one. I just renamed the table name. Let us go into the terminate tracked instance. As we are having a terminate shape, it would got terminated. And see here, child orchestration throwed an error back to the parent orchestration, and the parent terminated the process. So in our today's session, we seen how to build a publisher and subscriber, and the publisher used a call orchestration to validate the message and a start orchestration to archive it, and we were publishing the message to the subscriber using context promotion, and the subscriber picked up the message and processed the message to the target system. Thanks for watching the video.